Okay, so today I've got with me Pia, Orleane and Cullen Baird-Smith, and this is our second interview that we've had for Wellness Uncut, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you both with me again. How have you both been, and what's been going on since we last spoke?
Well, you know, the global affairs are all topsy-turvy, so we've been doing whatever we can to help people find peace, calm, and ease to move through these turbulent energies with grace and trust that everything's going to be okay. And the only thing required is that we share the truth and speak out for what is right instead of following whatever we might be told as protocols that we don't necessarily agree with. So we've been holding the peace, encouraging people to speak up, joining others together, connecting people, and just generally doing our work.
Beautiful. I love that.
We're doing well personally. And as Pia just mentioned, I think a great deal of what we're doing and what we're about is keeping our vibrations as high as possible so that we can simply teach by example. We know that teaching by example, rather than trying to talk someone into something, if we do what we do because we trust our hearts, it translates across from person to person to person, and it ripples out from the earth into the universe. So what we're doing is simply listening to our hearts, listening to information from wise beings, and trying to help others feel calm, collected, and have some assurance that we're all in this together in a sense of unity consciousness, and that we're all going to be okay in the end.
I love that. And it is very important, I think, to have, you know, a lot of reassurance during this time as well. Just for people who didn't catch the last discussion that we had on Wellness Uncut, Pia Orleane is a PhD. You're an author, an intuitive, and a health consultant as well, and also a former practicing psychologist, combining science and ancient wisdom. And Cullen, you're an empathic, intuitive, and visionary, and you've got some extraordinary healing abilities, and also you co-author a lot of the books with Pia as well. So you kind of in that together. Now, last time we discussed a few of your previous books. So we looked at the Sacred Earth, we looked at the Pleiadian Earth Energy Retreat, Conversations with Larkmar, and this time you were actually really generous, and you gifted me and sent it through your newest book, I think it is, and it's the Pleiadian Manual for Accelerated Evolution and Ascension. And this is kind of Larkmar's step-by-step guide. And for those that don't remember or haven't heard you guys speak yet, Larkmar is 6 of 1 and 1 of 6. So they're a unified unity consciousness collective of Pleiadian light, ancient immortal light beings. And they channel wisdom and information through to you, so you could share that with people living on the earth. That's correct, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well said.
So the book itself, I found really enjoyable. I haven't read all of it yet, but it's structured quite simply into 10 segments, really. And those 10 segments are, elaborated on, and then there's questions that you ask Larkmar, and they explain and answer those questions. So it's very much a self-guidance book with all of this intuitive wisdom that has been channeled through. So I want to cover off each of the sections today and talk about, you know, two or three of the questions from each section to give people not only an idea on the book, but also as to what wisdom is available through you guys. And also, you know, the Pleiadian Earth Energy Calendar as well, which you also gifted me, which I thought was very generous. And I use this all the time. So no longer do I go to my linear calendar. I'm just not interested in that anymore. It's always like, oh, I wonder what Pia and Cullen are saying in the Pleiadian Earth Calendar. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So we're in fact, I've been using it so much. Look, my July page has fallen out. So I would like you to talk to me a little bit more about that as well, okay? Because I think it's really valuable to look at perceiving time in a different way during this process. So with all of that in mind, I wanted to go to the first step, which is unity consciousness in the book. And you know, one of the questions that was asked was our experience with coronavirus a new step for humanity to come back to ourselves for inner growth? So what did Larkmar say?
Well, Larkma says that the virus is not what the media is making it out to be, and that we should not respond in fear. It's just a virus like getting the flu, and don't overreact to it. And instead, trust that that you can build up your own immunity to the virus by being exposed and then getting over it, just like you do any kind of flu. And they say that, yes, absolutely, we came together in a way that surprised those who are trying to control us, because we were all submitted to a global lockdown, basically, which wasn't really necessary at all for prevention of the virus. But we were subjected to that. And what happened during that lockdown was people started connecting more with each other, spending more time researching articles about what was going on, what the doctors have to say, what the scientists have revealed, and then sharing that information through Facebook, emails, any way that they could, sharing the things that they found. So actually, it was an exercise of us coming together in unity to say, no, this isn't right. Look at the truth. Look at what's really going on. And it unified us in a great way that we have not been experiencing previously.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that, you know, we all felt that. We all felt that so strongly. And actually, we all started reconnecting to ourselves as well as the community, and actually started seeing people walking around the estate instead of, you know, it being empty like a ghost town. It would be like, well, there'd be kids out on their bikes and with their parents, and the mum and dad would both be there together. It'd be like, what is this? This is like the American dream, you know. It's surreal. It almost felt really surreal. And people actually, once they got a taste of it, they wanted it more. And you know, but I guess that, you know, through this process of unity consciousness as well, another thing that came up that I think actually scared me a little bit was that the coronavirus can cause a freezing of our bank accounts. You know, I guess I'm curious to find out when this is going to happen and how do we prepare for it.
Well, actually, I would say it's not the coronavirus that would cause the freezing of the bank accounts. That's just an excuse.
Well, I mean, I have so much to share and say about this. The coronavirus is nothing new. There is so much information and so much statistical, empirical proof, factual proof that the coronavirus has been here forever. It's one of those viruses that is in the air, it's in our bodies. Only when we become compromised does it become dangerous. In the 1960s and 70s, there were household cleaning supplies sold in America. I don't know if they were sold in other countries, but I assume they were, that actually said on the label, if you use this household cleaning supply, it will help prevent the spread of coronavirus, which proves that this is not a 2019 occurrence. The coronavirus has been here probably since the dawn of time. It's a little bit like streptococcus or other bacterial or fungal elements that are always here. It's just that something happened in the world, and Pia and I are very outspoken about this. We believe, we know it's controversial, but we believe this virus became as dangerous and contagious because of the unrolling and rolling out of 5G technology. We believe they are absolutely connected. And I know a lot of people will probably not believe nor understand my statement, but we just saw something today that showed the 9 countries that have had the worst outbreak and the most deaths of coronavirus or related situations health-wise are absolutely linked to the 9 countries that have the most 5G rolled out. I don't think there's any controversy or any sense that that's not true. There's too much proof that is the case.
Cullen actually wrote an article called The Technovirus, put it on our website, explaining how the 5G makes the cells in our body, the oxygen in our cells, spin in the wrong direction, which causes people to collapse and causes people to be incredibly ill and
weakened.
weak. And so the correlation between the symptomology of COVID-19 and 5G is really blurry there, because it's the 5G symptomology that's causing the problem. And we don't deny that there's a biological virus at play here, and that it's probably been amplified or manipulated to some degree. But the human body is a magical being. We can create an antibody to anything that we are exposed to. The only time that the disease would kill us is if we're already, as Cullen said, in a compromised immunological condition. Back to your question about stopping the banks. 5G is not 5G doesn't affect the currency. The currency is causing the virus. The virus is not spread by touching money. They're using that to distract us, to get us to be afraid we're going to lose our money and be afraid and blame it on the virus, rather than seeing what's really going on, which is a worldwide global control system that wants to make us a digital society. Because as a digital society, we are more easily controlled.
So this is a much longer answer probably than you were expecting from your question, but we believe all of this is connected. And the only other thing I want to say about this topic is, because I want to go on with all of your other wonderful questions, the people that were falling down in the streets in Wuhan, China, there were videotapes early on, as far back as February and March. It was showing people walking and then just falling to the ground. That had nothing to do with COVID-19. That had to do with the rollout of 5G, where the oxygenation, as Pia explained, was not filling the cells with oxygen properly. So the people were not being able to breathe properly, so their body mechanisms couldn't work in a normal fashion. And that's why people were actually falling down in the streets, simply because they couldn't breathe.
Also, the enforcement of wearing masks is really unhealthy for the human body, because you breathe your own CO2 back in after you exhale if you're wearing a mask. So that also depletes your natural intake of oxygen and makes you sick. So even the implementation of wearing masks is not a preventative against COVID-19. It actually is done intentionally to weaken the human biodomain and make us sicker. So all of these things are done in place because of a much larger agenda that incorporates anything that it can to turn us into a controllable digital society. One last thing on your question of timing. We don't know when the banks are going to do whatever they decide to do, shut down, grab our money, whatever they decide to do globally. But we do have an intuition that something big is coming in October. Historically, the American stock market has crashed 2 times in October. That sets sort of a precedent for them to find a play in there where they might go, October is a good time. Plus, there are a lot of astrological lineups of energies that promote huge changes in October, starting in September, actually. So in terms of timing, I would tell everybody to be prepared for anything, anytime, but September and October may be particularly challenging for us.
We think this fall is going to be a benchmark change in human society. We think from many, many vantage points, many different theories and ideas, that between late September, early October, going into December, with the very impactful solstice that we will all be feeling and experiencing, we think many things, including what LARCMA has been telling us for years, that our monetary financial system would fall apart at some point. And we think
this could be it.
Late 2020, early 2021 into 2022 may be the time to find and reorganize a new paradigm around our financial worlds.
And all of our living styles.
Well, it's interesting because I know David Icke has been talking about, this for many, many years, how we need to find a new way to be able to exchange, money. And I think that we really have to be aware of this, because but it's difficult to know what to do, isn't it, for a lot of people? I think that we can't just exchange our money for gold, because you mentioned in the book as well that the gold will just get sort of potentially claimed by the state government or whatever. And so, it's like, what do we actually do then with the money that we've got in our bank accounts? I mean, if it's valueless, then what do we do with it? Is there anything we can do to prepare? We stuff it under our mattress, that's not going to work. Things like that. What's the solution?
Well, they could devalue cash in the bank or in cash in hand. Either one, they could suddenly devalue. We always try to go for a middle ground and do diversification. Diversify some of the bank, some cash, not necessarily under your mattress, some in precious metals, some in digital currency perhaps, is what we suggest for people who are seeking balance. Find a diversified front, because they're going to be trying to attack us on all fronts, but they'll focus on one and then they'll focus on another. So if we have a little bit somewhere in each of the diversified areas, we'll be a little bit more able to deal with whatever restrictions come about.
Plus, I think in talking about this particular issue, we have to realize that humans don't want change. It's so hard for humans to give up what they're used to. And when people talk about, well, what's going to happen if my finances go away? I think the biggest thing we have to remember is we're all going to be in this together. It's not just our money, Pia's and Cullen's, or yours, Hayden. It will be everybody's money. And that will cause a further implementation, a further interest in unity consciousness. We will all have to get together and realize competition doesn't work anymore. Well, it never worked. Cooperation and understanding and compassion will be the new rules of how we comport ourselves with each other. So if you lose your money, we will lose our money, and someone else down the street will lose their money. We will all be in the same boat together. And that is when we have to start thinking in a together, unified society.
One way to get through this is to stop and think about, what is the purpose of money anyway? Money is used to buy things that we need. So if we're anticipating that money is going to change, we can certainly put up a supply of things that we need: beans, rice, toilet paper, cosmetic, like dental materials, batteries, flashlights, blankets. If we have a supply of things on hand, then we're not going to be hit terribly by, oh, the money has just changed.
And following Pia's theory, we can exchange those goods until the new system is figured out. If someone needs beans and rice and someone else has an oversupply of them, all they have to do is trade those commodities for something else. And I think that will take us back to a much earlier way of exchange that had nothing to do with money in the first place.
A bartering system.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Fair and equal exchange, Lartma calls it.
Yeah, and of course, it's almost like taking a step backwards to something that actually works. And I wonder why we moved away from that in the first place, because if it obviously worked, then I don't know why it changed. It's silly. So I guess that we're talking about how we can move away from separation and unity here, aren't we? Separation to unity. And I guess that this is one aspect of it, isn't it? Where we can start working together again. And I think that's where we'd kind of all been sort of forced and programmed into a society where duality was the norm, and actually we started accepting it as being the paradigm of life. And it was actually not making anybody happy, because everyone felt depressed, everyone felt isolated, and actually so there's actually not that much to let go of when you think about it. It's it's about moving back into our natural state of being. And I think that just briefly going back to what you were saying earlier on about the people falling down in Wuhan, and the energies of 5G and how that is almost like making the virus even worse. Then it's like giving sick people poison in hospital, isn't it? When they're going through chemotherapy and things like that. And it's almost like this whole thing is just geared around taking out of our natural state of being, which actually, when we go back into that natural state, we feel well, we feel fulfilled, we feel complete, we feel like we want to give, and we feel like we want to be compassionate. So I think that unity consciousness is, you know, it's kind of like we're evolving more towards a Syrian culture on this planet. And you know, the Galactic Federation of Light, just really just kind of gently watching us and helping us move more into that. So the second section in your book is called Objectivity, Experience, and Judgment. And you know, there's lots of chaos in the world, and if we're part of the creation of all things, so am I a co-creator? Is one of the questions of this situation that we're going through at the moment, and how can I change that? So you know, taking it back to the individual, like what can each person do to be able to change that?
Well, Cullen mentioned raising our vibration, and that's the ultimate answer, is to keep our vibration in the higher states. But a more concrete answer would be stop judging everything, including ourselves. Stop judging and blaming everything that happens, and realize that everything that happens is an experience. Step away from, oh, that's awful, or oh, I really want this, the polarity of it, and begin to recognize that everything that happens is an experience. And then from an objective point, create better experiences, because we are thinking about them from a higher vibratory place.
What LARCMA has been trying to get humanity to understand for decades that we've been working with them is to stop reacting to every energy that comes towards us. Instead of reacting, taking the time to take a breath, become objective, and respond to whatever that is that comes to us. Instead of having a knee-jerk automatic judgment of, as Pia just said, oh, I don't like that, or this is painful, or this is uncomfortable. Instead of doing that, the trick is to immediately, before we make that judgment, before we make that emotional decision that this is not good, this is not a happy thing, we need to objectify it and say to ourselves, oh, here's something new. I may not be familiar with this, but simply because I'm not familiar with it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just part of duality. It's another aspect of how we are all different, how every energy is different.
And the same thing for people. Instead of saying they're not like me and I don't like the way they're doing things, begin to say, well, they may not resonate with how I feel things should be done. That may not be resonant, but they have to find their own pathway to light, and stop judging them. Just accept that they are who they are, and they are where they are in the process, instead of judging and blaming them. And this comes to play the most right now when we're looking at people who are intentionally doing things to harm the human species, like Bill Gates and his foundation, who are trying to find an inoculation that will automatically, probably, instill more of the very heinous virus that it claims to try to prevent. It's part of the agenda to lessen the population on Earth. And rather than moving into, oh, I hate him, look what he's doing, that's awful, send him light. Educate people to what he's trying to do from an objective stance, saying don't support this because this, and this are the scientific reasons, but send the man light. He's obviously going down a dark path. So you stop judging and you keep your vibration up, but you don't just turn a blind eye to what's happening. You do active things to expose where the dark is manifesting, how it's impacting this human being, and what needs to change.
Everything that comes to us can be seen as an educational experience. Everything that comes to us, whether we like it, we don't like it, it's new, it's old, it doesn't matter. If we use it as an educational experience to broaden our perspective, to broaden our connection to all energies, that combined with objectivity, I think education and objectivity go hand in hand to open us up, to give us a broader scope of the entire picture of who we are personally, what this world is like, and what the entire universe is like. So we must stop judging. We must stop acting as tribal members. As Pia said, that group isn't like us, so there must be something wrong with them. We must fear them. What we need to do is say, they have something different to offer. If we include what they're offering, our life will be fuller. Our life will be more beautiful. Our life will be completely different and hopefully more positive. So we need to enlarge our outlook about everything.
And become objective about the way we perceive things, because you can't judge where something needs a little bit extra support and a little bit more positive energy if you're in an emotional state. You only get into an adversarial position. But if you remove the emotions and look at it objectively, then you can be of real service to the world.
Absolutely. So what challenges or potentials lie in the, upcoming collective shadow cycles that we experience, do you think?
The upcoming shadow cycle this year for 2020 is going to occur exactly when Mars goes retrograde, which is a time historically that has been a time of war. What we can experience collectively is a lot of antagonistic energies, a lot of I'm right and you're wrong, a lot of I don't want to do it your way, I want to do it my way. That's what the collective will feel in this shadow cycle because of the presence of the energies. Thus, our task as a species is to stop those old patterns of reaction, those old patterns of emotionality, and just stop the program and say, no, we're going to do it differently. Unfortunately, most of the collective doesn't even have a clue that shadow cycles exist, much less how to work with them and use them to make positive changes for all of humanity. So therefore, it falls to us who carry the light and who are working with the light and who are awake to do the massive amount of work required by not falling into whatever's going on collectively and feeling like, well, I want to be mad too, and I don't like this either. We have to continually, during the collective shadow cycle, do the work to keep the vibration up for everybody, because they can't do it. They don't even know about it.
And that is why I often speak about teaching by example. If those who are the most light-filled, who are the most awake, and there's no judgment here about who's awake and who's not awake. I'm just saying that those who have awarenesses about compassion and love and cooperation, if they demonstrate in the world through our societal connections that we can simply change society by making better decisions. This whole process is about human choice. Larkma tells us that this planet is very different than other planetary systems because we do have human choice. We can choose to be happy. We can choose to be compassionate. We can choose to be of service. There's so many things we can choose to do instead of being disappointed, angry, grumpy, disconnected. I think one of the most important things in talking about this subject matter is we have the choice to step out and be positive. And I don't mean that in the guise of a Pollyannish, oh, everything's just perfect and everything's going to be okay and we're all going to be fine. I don't mean that. I mean standing up, speaking our truth, and being of as much service as possible. By doing that, we change the outer world simply by being who we are. And people watch and people notice, and that is teaching by example.
So in a way, that's the difference between allowing and creating, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we move on to the next sort of section of the book, and it talks about healing and love, which is always been, I guess, the main goal for the Pleiadian families. So, the Larkma treatments are a more targeted way, aren't they, of processing trauma, and also they work together. They can work together with psychology treatments, can't they? So you can actually, just because you're having some sort of more mainstream treatment to overcome trauma within your own body, you can also utilize the the techniques of Larkma as well. What would you say that that they would say about being able to deal with our shadows, and how would they suggest that we move beyond them?
Well, in their second book, Remembering Who We Are, they addressed an outline of how we change our thoughts and how we change our beliefs in order to help heal us out of this miasma we have of illusion. This third book that we're talking about now, the third one in the trilogy, takes it to another level about looking at shadows from a perspective of seeing the true reality. They spend a whole chapter talking about family, and I know we're not there to that chapter yet, but it does relate to healing, so I'm going to mention it here. We have this belief system about our families that does not necessarily serve us to move forward in our own evolution. So Larkma's position on trauma is look at your belief systems. What is it you need to surrender and stop believing and see what else is possible? They have the trauma clearing program that you spoke about and referenced, helps people go into specific traumas that are being held in the body or in their psyche, and they work to show the people a different energetic outcome. We all know that you can't change history. What happens, happens, but you can change the impact of how it's affecting you and impacting you today in your life. And that's what Larkma proposes to do in their individual trauma clearing sessions with people. On our own, they tell us to look at when you start feeling a trauma come up and you feel that emotional impact, stop and look at what you're thinking about it. And then ask yourself, what do I believe to be true about this? And follow that questioning system to say, is that really true? Or could that be something I've been taught incorrectly?
There's a really important aspect to self-love and self-healing. And that is, there's a very, very big connection between shadow work and trauma. We've all experienced traumas, whether it's from childhood, early adulthood, as we are now, working with coworkers, working with family, working with spouses. There is a direct connection between shadows. The reason the term shadow was invented is it actually means there's something inside us that we do not want to look at. It's dark, it's hidden. That darkness and that hidden element is directly associated with a trauma. So if we're willing to look at our shadows, delve into why we're trying to keep something that happened to us secret, unveiled, veiled, however we look at it, there's an absolute connection between opening up and realizing that if we don't clear the shadows and the traumas that cause the shadows, we're going to continue to live in the same loop, whether that's an emotional loop or a psychic loop.
The shadows will run an underlying program into everything that we see, do, feel, experience if they're not cleared out. There'll always be an underlying program that's running that we may or may not be aware of, which is why it's so important to take the time and courage to clear out the shadows that are there.
So the super importance of personal shadow work or collective shadow work is simply to look at what needs to change, what belief systems we have around keeping those things unchanging, and simply moving forward. And that all has to do with vibrational change. It has to do with unity. It has to do with stepping away from duality. It's all connected in a very beautiful package. All we have to do is look at it, work with it, and then we change.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I found it interesting as well that Larkma kind of suggests that we don't look at hypnosis as an appropriate way to be able to deal with your shadows. And, I know because there's a lot, there's a massive wave of people who are practicing hypnosis now, and as a way to be able to kind of reprogram subconscious patterns and all the rest of it. But why don't they think hypnosis is the best way to do it?
Well, obviously hypnosis is appropriate for some people and does help them. But what Larkma is trying to do is empower each of us to make the changes consciously within ourselves. Hypnosis by its very nature takes you into a subconscious state. So it may help you access things, but it doesn't empower you to make those changes permanently. So why LARPMA disengages from hypnosis as a first choice method is because they want you to summon the courage, look at whatever it is full on, which they can help you access if it's blocked, look at it, change it, and then completely be done with it so that you take the power to make the changes yourself. Hypnosis relies on somebody else, a practitioner, A, to be there to help you walk through it, and B, it requires a subconscious programming rather than having a conscious state of awareness. LARPMA wants people to be in a conscious state of awareness to make the changes.
Simply uncovering a parallel or a past life through hypnosis, as Pia said, under the guidance of someone else, in LARPMA's understanding, is a mental experience. Mm-hmm. Just uncovering it doesn't allow the person emotionally or psychically to do something with that new knowledge. It's brought up into someone's consciousness from their unconscious, but if they don't do the background work, if they don't look at their shadows, if they don't ask for help from a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a competent counselor, having that new information bubble up may make their life actually worse, because they'll think mentally, oh, I have this new information, but if it doesn't go anywhere, it's just going to frustrate them and make them less conscious of what they have to take care of.
For instance, if somebody's having a problematic relationship with another person and they just can't figure out why they keep having conflict, and they go into a hypnosis session and the hypnosis session says, well, that other person tried to kill you in another life. They come back with that piece of information and they have even more focused energy about, I don't want to be around you because you tried to kill me. There's no resolution energetically, no recognition that we are all the same. We are all connected. We're all just having experiences. They just have a new mental piece that only feeds the existing problem, as Cullen just said.
What I would like to say also is that we're not against hypnosis. What we've learned through LARPMA and our own experience is, if we don't delve into traumas, shadows, things that are unclear in our outer personalities, if we don't do the background work, if we don't do something to change what happened, how it happened, why it happened, we're going to be in the same loop. We're not going to be educationally different. And one other thing that is important to Pia and me is, many people who are awakening are having what some would call deja vu experiences, or memories coming up from the depths, all on their own without hypnosis. And one of LARPMA's ideas is that if they come up automatically, that is shadow work that's happening spontaneously, which is a much more healing experience than what we've been talking about. And Pia and I have so many experiences listening to people saying, I didn't know there were past or parallel lives. And the other day, I had these experiences and it opened me up in ways I never would have guessed. That is happening more and more to humanity. And that is really, really a helpful new situation.
So it's more of an organic process rather than it being a forced
Absolutely.
outcome, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I guess that, we're talking about fears as well, and, how we can, start facing our fears. And there's two main fears, like the fear of death and the fear of judgment as well. And actually, the fear of love as well, and the fear of not being good enough to be loved. So can you talk more about those two kind of basic kind of human behaviors?
Cullen has a term that he started using as a young man that I think explains a lot of it, and that is bad training. We are not trained to look at our gifts. We're not trained to look at how wonderful we are. We are trained to move in a linear model of progress from a point that is less than perfect to a point where we are supposed to achieve perfection, which we never do. So that because life's a process. We're perfect as we are in each moment, and we're continually improving in the process. That leads people to believe that we're not lovable because we're not perfect. On top of that, we have this cultural overlay that imprints on every single person competitiveness. I've got to compete because this person's got more than I do. They're better than me. They're prettier than me. They're more handsome. They're richer. They're more successful. All this competitive energy erodes the self-awareness and the self-respect that we have for ourselves and makes us again feel like we're not lovable. So we have to jettison all of the bad training and move back into a place of recognizing the gifts we have. Clearing the shadows, which we just talked about, helps us reclaim the beauty of who we are.
There's a phenomenon in the New Age of people looking at others. If someone sees someone who's psychic and they don't feel they're psychic, they devalue themselves because they're competing with the person that they think knows more than they do. And that goes across the board in the whole spiritual movement in the world. If someone doesn't see spaceships, they think they're deficient because their friends see spaceships every night in the sky. If someone doesn't understand about compassion or empathy or intuition, they think the person that does experience that is much more developed than they are. And one of the things we must do in order to realize that we must love ourselves as we are is to stop comparing ourselves to someone else. Everybody has their own gifts and talents. We are all born. We all come in with a mission. We all come in.
I want to interrupt right here with something,
Sure.
a point that you just made about people. If they see somebody else being empathic and compassionate and kind, and they think that they're better because they're having trouble being that themselves, they don't know what that other person is dealing with. They don't know if that other person might have the exact same set of challenges at an emotional, mental, or physical level. All they see is, well, they're being really kind and I'm not. So the judgment leaves out the position of understanding that we all have something to deal with.
Yeah, that's a good addition, Pia. And what I'm trying to explain here is that no one's gifts or talents are any better than anyone else's. Someone who has the most open heart may not have psychic abilities, or someone with the most psychic abilities may not have an open heart. It's completely individual. And once again, this moves us toward the idea of unity consciousness. We need to share all of these gifts and talents with each other openly and not point the finger and say, well, that person's more spiritually developed, or that person's an older soul than I am. We need to stop that competition and that comparing so that we can give what we have to give from our hearts and simply be who we are and recognizing that in each other.
One of LARTMA's favorite things that they've been saying for at least 10 years now is the time for teachers, healers, and leaders is over. They explain over and over and over again that thinking you're a teacher, thinking you're a healer, thinking you're a leader is only a certain plateau of spiritual development, because people wake up and they go, oh, look what I can do. I'm a healer now. I'm a teacher now. But they've only just awakened up to abilities that all of us carry. So LARTMA discourages claiming I'm a teacher, I'm a leader, I'm a healer, and says instead, encourage your fellow humans that they are teachers, leaders, and healers also. All humans can share with one another. All humans can help lead one another to the higher vibration. All humans can help support each other's healing. So stop claiming this as if you're special, because that causes separation.
We're all the same divine sparks of light.
Mm-hmm.
We all come from the same place. We all have the ability to self-heal. We have the ability to help others heal, but it does not, as Pia just said, make us special. It makes us, in the Mayan terminology, the word we love, in Lakesh, I am another yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we need to know. I am another yourself.
That's right, because otherwise we're kind of moving more into ego, and you know, we know where that's got us. So yeah, we need to move away from all of that, transcend the ego, and just see it as a healthy part of our personality, but don't buy into all the, you know, all that stuff that we want to tell ourselves. And actually, yeah, an ego works both ways, doesn't it? It works as in, you know, being, oh, look at me, or don't look at me, don't look at me. It's all the same
Yes.
thing, you know. So yeah, moving away from that. So how do we work then on wellness and health in such a changing environment? What how can we improve the way we're doing things, do you think?
The new book has a whole section on the Ascension diet, which Larkma has provided, because they say that we do not nourish ourselves through the same nutritional values that we have in the past, because our cosmic weather is changing. We have more cosmic rays coming in, we have a higher Schumann resonance, we are moving from a carbon-based form into a crystalline-based form, so therefore we need a less dense diet. Also, we're evolving spiritually in our conscious awareness. So therefore, we need to move towards the principle of ahimsa, which is do no harm, which means stop killing for food. That's pretty plain and simple. If you kill for food, you're not respecting all life. And the bad training that suggests that we have to have meat to be healthy is simply bad training. It's not true. There have been many, many studies to prove that you can get just as much protein, which we all need, from a plant-based diet. So to evolve at a spiritual level, look at what you're eating. And to evolve at a physical level, as the body changes, look at what you're eating. So that's a really important way towards moving towards healing, in addition to clearing out the traumas we've been talking about.
It's not just about adjusting our physical diets, it's about everything we take in.
Yes.
Larkma has talked at length for a very, very long time about we take in things other than food that are either positive for us or negative. If we read books that are filled with tragedy, misery, competition, pain, that brings that
Trauma.
energy into our being, into ourselves, mentally, physically, psychically. If we go to movies that are filled with gratuitous violence or gratuitous sexuality or simple, ridiculous plots that are not positive in nature, we're pulling that energy into ourselves also. And that can be just as important as the food we eat, because that basically changes our vibration. If we're not bringing positive, wholesome, loving, high vibrational information into us in any form, we're going to drag ourselves down on a mental, physical, spiritual, all levels. And so it's not just food. We need to be careful about everything we bring into ourselves, and conversely, what we project out of ourselves. Our thoughts are just as important and just as potent as what we say or do. Our thoughts project out energy and vibration. And so we need to be careful about what we pull into ourselves and what we push out of ourselves.
So how are we nourishing ourselves, and what are we giving to nourish others?
Absolutely. And I noticed that in the book as well, especially at the back, there's some really beautiful recipes that you've put together to help people, you know, to sort of look at plant-based diets instead of, you know, always going for the meat options. And, you know, I was watching the Australian Ninja the other day, and there was a guy on there who was one of the biggest guys, and he was living on a plant-based diet. He was actually one of the fittest contestants as well. So, you know, it doesn't mean to say you're going to become all weedy and everything like that if you only eat Piers Holiday chickpea loaf or Piers curried yams and cauliflower. You know, it's like, you know, these are really wholesome, nutritious, beautiful foods that you can substitute a lot of those things for. And even if you just start doing it slowly, you know, maybe supplementing 2 or 3 meals a week to begin with until you get the taste for it, and then you can wean yourself off of the meat, or, you know, if it's the sugar as well, or the alcohol, which is going to be quite a big one for the Aussies, I think, because they all like to have a bit of a tinny or a bottle of or a glass of bubbles, you know. So but you know, it is a process of just weaning ourselves away from, you know, the naughty things, with the goal and the aim just to keep our vibration as high as possible. So yes, it's to do with, I agree, the diet is evolving, and as we're becoming light beings, you know, because you mentioned that we're on the, you know, the process of becoming rainbow beings, and you know, kind of changing, our chakras are changing color and everything, you know, as we work on ourselves with a lot of personal development. So you know, we also have to look at, you know, the words that you're saying, you know, the words that we use, the thoughts that we think, and also the feelings that we have. So it all kind of is all compounded together, really. You can't separate it off as individual aspects of wellness. Now, the other thing that you mentioned as well was the organ transplants as well. Now, I was interested to find out a little bit more about that. So what does Larkmar say about, you know, that whole process of transplanting organs?
Well, what I would like to say is Larkma has absolutely no judgment about anything that humans do. If humans decide not to become involved with a plant-based diet, Larkma has no consideration or no judgment. They know it's our choice, and they feel that if we want to evolve, it's possible we need to do certain things. But if we're not interested in evolving, do whatever you want. That would be eating sugar, drinking alcohol, doing all the things that they think aren't the best for us. The same idea behind organ transplants is they have no judgment of what humans choose to do. But they do tell us that if there are organs transplanted into a foreign body, things will change. And Pia can explain this.
That you will take in the energy of the other person. If you get a heart transplant, you're going to take the energy of that person's heart into your energetic field. If you have a liver transplant, you're going to take what their liver did into your energetic field. So you're actually incorporating not just the organ, but the energy and often the personality of the other person into you. And again, as Cullen just said, Larkma has no judgment about this, and they don't even recommend do it or don't do it. One thing that they do recommend, they say it's an individual choice for each person, but the one thing they do recommend is don't make the choice out of fear. Don't be afraid, if I don't do this organ transplant, I'm going to die. Dying might be the next step in your evolution, and that might be just okay and just fine. So don't cling to life out of fear. However, if you deeply feel your mission here is not finished and that you need a little extra support, make the decision saying I have more to do, but not out of a fear-based place of I'm afraid to die. So that's the one thing they do say about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. And actually, you know, for a while, I've been aware that organs carry memories as well, that can be transferred into the next person. So they might end up, you know, especially if they've got I think there was something on True or False. It was one of those American shows where somebody got an eye transplant, and they ended up recognizing somebody who they'd witnessed a murder or something, and they got the eye transplant, and they actually could identify the person through the eyes that they had, or something strange like that. And it was just like, wow, you know, these organs that we've got are a lot more intelligent than we might actually think.
That also means that in the situation you just used as an example, they would also be transferring the trauma that person felt and the emotional shock from what they saw. So that gets transferred too.
Yep. Yeah, the body is a very wise, very developed energy system. And what we're talking about is very serious and very true, that the body remembers cellularly, our muscles remember, everything in the body has the capacity to know things and remember things. So we do have to be careful about things that we choose to do.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that Larkma has no judgment as well on what we decide to do and what we choose to do. But that brings me on to some of the other questions a bit later on, because I know that, you know, of course, you know, there's no judgment on who's waking up and who isn't. But those, you know, there are some people that are, you know, getting an inkling as something's shifting on the planet, but they don't really understand what. And, you know, what actually happens to the people who kind of get left behind. You know, do they actually disappear, or do we disappear, or are they still around us? Like when this dimensional shift takes place, like where does everyone go?
Well, it's already happening now. The split, as Lartman describes it, is already occurring. And we know that because there are multiple occurrences and experiences we've had. We've been directly in front of a person, either physically in body or in a car or truck, a vehicle, and the person looks directly at us and pulls out in front of us or slams a door into our physical body. They don't see us. So we know that that's already happening, not just for us, but for many people who are beginning to sense like, I'm not being seen. So it's almost as if there's a Mandela effect going on, or a parallel dimensional shift going on, so that we're in one dimension, there's this other dimension over here, and the dimensions are getting further and further apart. As to the question, will we see the other people who are in that dimension when we're in this one? Sometimes it's appropriate that we still see them, whether they see us or not. Sometimes they will fade from our awareness because they're no longer appropriate to our evolutionary journey. So maybe we'll see them, maybe we won't, but they're definitely going into a different dimension than we are.
Yeah, the gap is growing day by day.
Mm-hmm.
P and I have had these experiences for many, many years. It's nothing new to us, where people don't see us. We can be on a nature trail in a forest, walking along, and people won't even notice that we're there. They are oblivious to our presence. Or, as Pia mentioned, we can be going into a shop and we're directly behind someone, and they allow the door to slam in our faces because they don't know we're there. They don't even see us or feel us. And I think feel is a good term here too. It's not just seeing with the eyes, it's feeling senses around us. We could go on, which we won't because we don't have time for this, but there are so many examples of dimensional gap switches where people are now living side by side in a different reality.
So it's happening. It's not when it happens, it's happening.
It's happening. Yeah, it's happening. That'll explain when I go into the supermarket then that people always try and tread on me.
Yes. Pia unfortunately has the not so good experience of people bumping into her with their trolleys. She's right there and they don't see her, and they try to travel right through her. Yeah. So we know you understand that experience.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's why I can't go to the supermarket anymore, because people always just want to be where I'm standing all the time.
Yes.
And I just like, well, why? You know, it's like, can't they see that I'm here? So yeah, I've been invisible for a long time. So Mark has to go and do the shop.
The reason they're doing that, Hayden, is they're drawn to your light. They feel this is where I want to stand, but they don't know why.
But they want to be in the presence
of the light,
of a greater light. And so they disregard your physical body, but they are aware, and I would say again on a feeling level, that your light is present. And unfortunately, the gap there is that your body can be harmed by them trying to be more fully in the light.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's been plenty of other things that I won't go into on camera that I'll share with you off camera as well, that that will really blow your mind. So, okay. So, you know, what is life going to look like on Earth when all of the institutions start breaking down? Now, you did mention that, you know, the W word, you know, war. So, which is quite a scary word, isn't it? But, you know, is that really what we've got coming up, or could it not be that, based around how everybody pulls together as a collective?
That is the point.
We have choice.
What you just said is the point. It could be all-out war. It could be a tribal understanding that our tribe is better than yours and we must get rid of you. Or it could be more and more people waking up and going, well, maybe I like Indonesian food better than American food. Maybe I would be better off eating a different food. So why would I be mad at you? I want to include your food in my diet.
I think the biggest choice that we have to make right now is what we're going to do about the technology that is being forced upon us. Because the choice point where we're reaching as a species is live or die. If we allow 5G to continue to take over the planet, it has been proven that 5G annihilates life. It wipes us out completely. And I think it bears remembering that the history and the myth of Atlantis is being repeated here. We're in the same choice point of, are we going to allow this technology to cause us to blow ourselves up and no more humans? Or are we going to stand up and say, we're not going down that path again? We did that in a different dimension at another time. We're not going to do that. So that's one of the biggest choices that will determine what our future is looking like. The powers that are trying to control us are trying to institute the 5G satellites all over the planet so that they can, one, reduce the population, and two, so that they can instill the Internet of Things so that we can become more automated and that we're more controllable. So we have to make a choice to put down the smartphone, not use it, maybe get an old-fashioned flip phone or a landline. Stop using internet as much and use it only when necessary. Spend more time in nature. Stop looking forward to technology as if it's going to save us, and recognize it can also kill us, and make some better choices. That's what our future will depend on.
And it has completely to do with what many people who have a false idea that we are going to be rescued by a more intelligent, more loving species from another solar system. The amount of time and energy and words and thoughts that Pia and I have spent with our Pleiadian friends, and we also speak to other societies, not just Pleiadians. We have friends all over the universe, and they've all been telling us the same thing. We are not going to come to rescue you. You have to make the changes.
And save yourselves.
You have to have the courage to make the decisions and the choices to save yourself. So what Pia was just saying is all about choice and standing up, speaking the truth that's in our hearts, and saying, no, we won't go down this road. And it's our choice. We can be victims of the dark, or we can stand up, use our light swords and say, no, we're not going into virtual reality. We're not going to let AI, artificial intelligence, rule us. We're going to continue to live as bio-humans, not techno-humans. And that is the best way I can answer your question. It's up to us. And if we don't start speaking and standing up for what we believe is the truth, we will be overtaken. And now is the time. We all have to speak.
Well, you see, that's all very well and good, but when we think about it, as an individual, we're almost powerless. But like as a collective, that's where we have more of a say. But it's like, how are we going to get together to be of service, to create profound change on the planet? Because a lot of us are actually choosing to do that through the internet as a way of being able to sort of team together in groups and everything like that, share our values and opinions. But there's almost like a bit of a dichotomy that's coming up within this. How are we going to be able to do it as a collective?
Use the internet to find out sources of how to fight against 5G, and band together in saying, oh, here's the steps we need to follow. This is what we need to do. And then get out and speak to governing commissioners, medical authorities. Get people online on board who can say, we need to fight this battle against 5G because it's the biggest battle in town. One candle lights an entire room. So when you say one of us feels pretty disempowered and one person can't do anything, one voice can make a tremendous difference. A little teenager in Sweden made a difference that was heard all around the world with what she started saying. I'm not sure she's aligned with everything she thinks she is, but everybody paid attention and listened to one tiny, not even grown-up voice. So therefore, we can make a difference by speaking out and using internet as a tool to get valid information for how we can approach our Congress people, our governors, our our world leaders and say, no, we don't want this. We're not going to vote for you if you don't take it down, is one of the biggest steps we can make.
And the element of fear, people are afraid if they stand up. If during the COVID-19 lockdown, people were told you cannot demonstrate, you cannot be out in groups of people. Well, in certain countries and in certain social situations, some people had the courage to do that. Here in Cyprus, there have been protests where people got together in hundreds, maybe thousands. They walked the streets. The police
Gave them thumbs up and backed out of their way.
Some of the police even joined the marches.
So just starting something like that, going out to go grocery shopping and saying, no, I'm not going to wear a mask, I don't need to, is a step. And if enough people start doing it, they won't be enforcing it. We just have to stick collectively together to say this isn't the way to do it. Sweden just came out with a report that they are down to 2 deaths, I think, from COVID-19. And they did not follow any of the protocols of mask, gloves,
social distancing,
lockdown. They just took a moderate approach of keep a reasonable distance and live your life, exercise, eat the regular food, live your life as normally as you can, and allow your body to take the COVID-19 virus in if you get it and create its own antigen. So you won't need an inoculation. So the Swedish people are leading the world in no fear, taking a positive stance, and not paying attention to rules that don't apply. We should all be following Sweden.
The Swedish government didn't shut down the ability of people to gather. The restaurants and pubs and bars were never closed. Their concerts weren't stopped. Sweden was an open society during the whole March, April, May, June, partial July lockdown. And nothing drastic happened.
So now medical doctors are stating, following Sweden's protocol, that if a second wave of corona comes during the fall, which is anticipated by many, that the Swedish people won't be affected because they've already created antigen and antibodies in their own systems against it. While everybody else who's been breathing their own CO2 and wearing masks and locked down have not created the antibodies that they need. So they will still have to be exposed in order to create their own antibodies, which people are afraid of because of the news.
It's a shame though, because, there have been in Perth, there have been people. One example was a lady the other day, she chose not to wear her mask. She was in Melbourne, because I think Melbourne now they've been enforced to wear masks. We don't in Perth. And she was on the news anyway. She was ridiculed, and she was actually victimized because she chose to burn her mask, on camera, and she was, standing up saying, you can't enforce this. And she was actually trying to have a voice. And she was made by the media to look like some sort of Satanist. It was ridiculous. But, a lot of people, sort of jumped on the bandwagon. They were like, well, this stupid woman, and everyone's like, oh, she's probably going to get taken out. And it's like, it's things like that. You don't want to sort of, you don't want to shorten your lifespan by standing out at the wrong time and then, sort of find yourself on, on the wrong end of the law. But at the same time,
there's certainly a lot to be said for timing, but there's also something to be said for getting a group to do it together.
Yes,
instead of one.
But on the other hand, a number of people watching her on television would say, oh, I agree with her. She has the courage to do this. I will be able to stand up now because she did it first. Mm-hmm. So there's actually a double equation there. It will awaken some people in the opposite direction of the people who are condemning her. So that's the kind of one candle in a dark room that is teaching by example. And maybe she will enliven enough people that more people will stand up and say, I agree, I'm not going to do that.
Well, let's hope so. I think that, so what you're saying really then is, or what Lakmar are saying, the best way that we can be of service right now on the planet is to, is to assist with the whole process of developing 5G awareness so that people can start, putting this to bed, because it's the most it's the most critical factor at the moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so why so much UFO activity now then? I mean, I know it's been stepping up over the years and stuff like that, but you know, why is there so much more, you know, things happening, like, you know, meteorites coming in that are glowing green, or alleged, you know, meteorites, or, you know, why is it happening more so now?
It's a simple answer. It's because life on Earth has become critical. And all of these beings of love and light who have been watching us passively for centuries, for millennia, now understand that we need more help than we have ever needed before in human history. And they are gathering. If everybody could see through the clouds, or if everybody could see clearly, this planet is ringed with ships. There are, I'm not going to guess at how many numbers wise, but there are so many societies stationed around this planet, because they are beaming. They're not changing us. They're not seeing us as victims, but they are beaming love and light, which is passive, to every human being, to every situation, to every military person who has a thumb on a nuclear warhead button. They are beaming love and compassion to that person to prevent that person from beginning to blow up this world.
And secondarily, the other side of it is that more people are becoming consciously aware.
Mhm.
So they're able to see things that they didn't even believe existed before. So the combination of what Cullen just explained from the external about their presence and the internal about our conscious evolution explains why now. We're at the
Okay.
critical point in raising consciousness too.
People who would have scoffed at unusual aircraft in the past are now looking at the night skies and saying, wow, I'm seeing these things. And if I communicate with them mentally, if I say, I see you, they come back and say, they're blinking their lights at me, and they know, I know they're there. And this is happening
A lot.
worldwide. We're getting reports from every continent and almost every country that we connect with about the new understanding and the new visibility of what's actually always been out there. So it's moving tremendously in a much more visual and belief system process.
So is that the difference between soul consciousness and body consciousness then that you're talking about?
Not exactly, because body consciousness also has an awareness. Body consciousness can actually awaken our physical 3D eyes to see something we haven't seen there, but the soul consciousness has to give us the impulse of this is possible. So they both have to be present and at a higher vibratory awareness.
There's a great example of this. If we continue talking about ships in the night sky, if someone who didn't believe that it was possible sees one and they get a physical representation of a body awareness, let's call it goosebumps. If they get that, that's the body wisdom telling them first, something's afoot here. I'm getting a feeling something's going on. That can be the body telling the mind, look, something's happening. I can feel it, even maybe before I can see it. So your question is a double-sided coin. Both the body and the mind or the soul can have either independent or simultaneous understanding or awareness of how we're changing and what we're seeing and feeling.
Yeah, because that takes me back to when I was 16 and I used to live in a hamlet in North Yorkshire, and I was with two other people, and we saw the lights in the sky responding to our thoughts. And I was just kind of thought I was joking with them, and I was just like, oh, show me that you're there. I know you're always that. They were saying, oh, we're always here, but sometimes you can see us and sometimes you can't. And I'm having this dialogue with these things, and then all of a sudden, this misty shaped kind of object seemed to wash through us all, and we all got goosebumps and tingly, and we were like, and Amanda, the girl we were with, she screamed. We were like, what was that? It was a very real physical experience that we all felt simultaneously. And so you know, I think that, you know, your body's, you know, does definitely become conscious of this shift as well, doesn't it? It's it kind of
Absolutely.
registers it, and it did feel it felt nice. It felt quite loving, but also quite frightening, because you're just like, well, what is doing that?
And that is the idea of non-familiarity. If it's not familiar, can we believe that we actually experienced it? Or do we think we were just joking around, as you just said? But that is also changing, because we're now open, because the veil is thinner. The old paradigm of familiarity is not as important as it used to be, because new energies, new phenomenon, new examples of things that we never would have guessed were possible are now showing up in our environment. And it's making us grow. It's making us evolve. It's changing us.
Absolutely, yeah. It's almost like second nature now. The way people are, you know, are so open about it, and they're starting to understand fully which star system that they've come in from, and all of the rest of it. And there's no sort of like, oh, you know, I'll sound like an idiot if I start talking about this, because we are being downloaded all this information, as you're saying, you know, organically, and it's not necessarily something that we have to go to a practitioner or a hypnotherapist to be able to access anymore. So those new paradigms are definitely infiltrating our conscious awareness. You know, you mentioned as well, like how our bodies are affected every time we send love and light into our cellular memory. And it's like, you know, so all of these beautiful beings of light are dispersing this light down onto the beings on the planet, and almost, you know, sort of trying to influence them without dictating to them about, you know, not to press the button or whatever it is, or create all this war. So they are working beautifully with us in a way that they know that they can, without interfering with human free will. And you know, but how do we cultivate those relationships with beings of light? What else can we do?
The more that we clear out our shadows, the more we open up our intuition. The more the intuition opens up, the more aware we become of their presence, and then the more we can communicate with them. So it's all about getting our vibration up to their level. They, you know, they don't want to be at our level. They've already evolved past our level. So our job, if we wish to connect, communicate with them, is to get our vibration up to their level. Then we can easily communicate.
And there's a really important element here. We need to ask. We need to acknowledge, yes, you're there. I want to communicate with you, and I love you. Mm-hmm. They will respond to those two wishes much more deeply than if we just look into the night sky and make no attempt at communication. Pia and I learned this as children, not with space brothers and sisters, but with the David Kingdom and the fairies. We realized that if we asked, can we see you? Will you make yourselves visible? We love you. We will not harm you. We're interested in cross-species communication. When we did that as children, my gosh, it opened up the field of them realizing that they want to communicate with us, which they already know on their own part. But if we say the same thing back, and this is giving me all over goosebumps because this is the truth, that experience of saying, I want to know you, I want to communicate, I love you, can we be together? Can we cross our energies? It opens up a completely new field of understanding and communication.
And I would say also there was some of that going on with interstellar beings.
Well, yes, yes.
So yes, it's always been a part on all levels of consciousness to be able to do that.
That's beautiful.
They're waiting. They are waiting for us to not only acknowledge them, but ask them into our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned, you know, it's all about sort of developing our intuition, but the pineal gland can get calcified, can't it? So we have to purposefully decalcify our pineal glands so that we can kind of open up our cosmic consciousness. But how do we do that? Because obviously we're all drinking a lot of fluoride in our water and all of that sort of stuff.
Well, one of the big steps is obviously getting the fluoride out of the water, filtering it, getting a water purifier, staying away from Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi detrimentally affects the pineal. Use a wired computer. Staying away from bisphosphate, which is the printed paper that receipts are made on. Every time you get it, you absorb it in your skin. That's harmful to the pineal.
Any kind of heat related paper products that a machine, whether it's a cash register receipt or other heat treated paper that comes to us through commerce, all of those pieces of paper are absolutely poisonous to us.
Actually, I think the name of it is bisphenol. Bisphenol.
Yeah.
And staying away from poisons like glyphosate, because that's a poison. In other words, we need to purify our environment and get away from the toxicities that are causing automatic calcification of the pineal. It's not just about decalcifying it, it's about preventing it. For decalcification, there are a number of supplements that we can take, but we have to take these proactive steps about our environment first, or the supplemental impact won't be relevant at all. It won't really help. One of the biggest supplements that you can take while you're detoxifying your environment is K2-7, which is directly related to decalcifying the pineal gland. You take it at night, and then the following morning you take vitamin A, which helps decalcify the pineal and also prevents viruses. That's the biggest one. The second one that I would say is using Bacopa monnieri, which is a cognitive enhancer. It's not specifically about the pineal, but it's a cognitive enhancer to help us use our brains more functionally. And then there is sea buckthorn, which is an herbal supplement that contraindicates the effects of the cosmic waves and the high radiation we're receiving. Those three would be my top three to suggest for decalcifying the pineal. But none of them will do any good if we don't get away from the fluoride and all the other things in the environment.
There's a whole list of dangerous materials that have calcified the pineal gland. Aluminum, heavy metals and aluminum are highly, highly detrimental. The chemtrails, all of the junk that's being sprayed, the metallic sprayed particulates that are being exhausted from jet exhaust in the skies, those are terrible examples of what is harming the pineal gland. It's not just the pineal, as Pia said, it's the entire brain. It's all of the components of the brain.
We wrote an article in New Dawn magazine in Australia on consciousness. You can find it on our website. If you go to lartma.com and then look at articles, you can find the whole list of supplements that you can take and toxins that are harming the pineal and what you can do to support decalcification.
It's really important at this point in human evolution to take care of the pineal because, as you said a moment ago, it's the window to our cosmic connection. It's the window to dimensional understanding.
It's all about light.
It's about light. And the more light that the pineal can access opens us up to dimensional understanding, dimensional travel, even developing our DNA. All of that is involved in keeping the pineal happy and healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's absolutely essential. One other thing that I would like to add to that is just that there's something that I use. It's an Australian bush flower remedy, and it's very good for sort of rebalancing the pineal gland. It's called bush iris, and I've found that's helped me a lot, and it kind of regulates the light that you're able to get coming in. So preparing for for a different world, and we talk about sort of the ascension that's going to work, and also our ascension and the Earth's ascension, and how they're going to kind of intertwine together, because the Earth's obviously on her own trajectory, and each one of us is on our own trajectory as well. So Is there crossover with all of that? And how does the Earth support us?
Absolutely, there's a crossover.
Yes, that's the dimensional shifting we were speaking about earlier. And I think the biggest way we can prepare for the new reality is to become more open and flexible about our belief systems, to be children in wonder and awe of what is possible. That's the best preparation we can be. And to be in that place of awe and wonder and joy requires, again, getting rid of the shadows, cleaning up the environment, doing things that make us supported to be childlike and receptive. So we can prepare for it by doing our shadow work, changing our belief systems, cleaning up our external environment, standing up to fight for the world we want to create. All of those things are part of preparing for a new world.
And you're absolutely right. The Earth's ascension and human ascension are interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
Earth will ascend no matter what we decide, no matter what choices we make. She is on her own trajectory of her development, of moving in a spiral fashion, upwards, forwards, however we want to talk about it.
Because Earth itself is conscious.
But at the same time, I should say however instead of but, however, at the same time, we humans who are awakening, we humans who are making the right decisions, are helping the Earth in her process. Because whenever you support something, an energy that's moving, changing, doing something in a positive way, support encourages and bolsters what that choice that has already been made, how it is moving. So yes, she's moving, we're moving, and together we make a greater combination of energetic meaningfulness, connection. So yes, it's happening simultaneously.
Beautiful. So is there anything else that you feel like you want to, that you really haven't said today that you really would like to add to the conversation as encouragement to everybody who's watching this?
The only thing that I would add to it is that our cosmic weather is changing. And we need to stop thinking of ourselves as sick when we go through these changes that affect us physically, mentally, or emotionally. There is more light pouring in naturally as part of the evolutionary path of this planet. The part that's causing the complication is what's being added to irradiate us from 5G and other EMF controls. That makes it a little more complicated. So we have to learn to distinguish between, am I being impacted by 5G and EMFs, or am I being impacted by the cosmic weather? And when 5G is not what the problem is, when you know that you're not in an area of 5G and you're still experiencing these symptoms, stop thinking I'm sick and start thinking I'm changing. Start recognizing that we are beings of light, and the light that is coming in is helping to fill ourselves with more light. And of course, a dense physical carbon-based form is going to have to go through some adjustments to change into a light crystalline form. So we're going to experience vertigo, dizziness, digestive issues, disrupted sleep, headaches, migraine type headaches, many symptoms we're having. But that's the body's releasing its old form and accepting the new light that is coming in. So stop thinking of ourselves as sick is the one thing that I'd say going forward. Think of us as going through a birth process. We used a butterfly on the cover of our book because the butterfly represents moving outside of the cocoon into the beautiful butterfly. And that's where we are right now. We're breaking out of the cocoon of our illusion. And that cocoon has imprisoned us in a painful way. So we're breaking free, and it's causing a bit of discomfort before we move into our new form.
So what will we experience in the higher dimensions?
Freedom,
Abundance, connectivity, trust, love, compassion, all those things that we aspire to, that we know about at a mental level, but we don't quite experience every day on the everyday level. All of that is waiting on us. So freedom and abundance are the two that come to mind the quickest, and what Lartma has promised we will experience.
We're quite constricted in these human bodies and these human personalities compared to where we came from. Those of us who remember what it was like, either partially, or some of us wholly remember actually what life was like before we incarnated, either many times or this particular time. We have this huge amount of energy that we have stuffed and pushed down into this tiny little human existence in this little body that we possess and this little personality that we possess. And what we will experience as we turn from the carbon-based body to the liquid crystalline body, to merging the physical body with the etheric body, creating the rainbow body form, we will have this absolute expansion of, oh, I am free. I can literally, figuratively, be and do whatever I want. I can shapeshift into any form. I can travel at will. I can do anything that I wish to do.
So that's where we're going, and we've got a few more steps until we get there.
I'll say yes, absolutely. Well, I'll be doing a partition or a petition, and I'll be saying no 5G. I'll be marching down the street. I'll be doing all my bit, waving my little flag. Oh, yes, stop! And hopefully that'll be enough. Now, just before we go, I wanted to. Sorry, I don't mean to mock it. I know it's very serious. Bringing a bit of humor into it. Now, the 2020 Pleiadian Earth Energy Calendar. Now, this is a must for everybody to get a hold of one of these, because it's just fascinating, because it is looking at our cycles, you know, as being just that, a spiral of consciousness as aside from linear time. So, for example, my July page that has fallen out here, we are currently on the 30th of July, and it's a 13 self-regulating day. Now, I want to just make sure that I've been reading this correctly as well, because sometimes, like, because I don't understand the Venus bit of it, so I can't work out the Venus aspect. But so what I do is I go to the back and I go, okay, so it's a 13, which is a completing day, a time for completing all unfinished business and integrating it with, so that we can begin a new cycle tomorrow, because we're at the end of one of those cycles. And we're also on a self-regulating day. So then I look at the earth energies, and it says an appropriate use of the energy is demonstrating competency and making hard choices, and an inappropriate use of it is confusion. Am I getting the most out of the calendar, or am I missing a vital part of it?
You're getting the basic steps of understanding it. The 13 is the universal energies, and we move in cycles of 13, which build one upon another, starting with one initiating all the way to completing. So each day in the cycle of 13 builds. If we use them as they're intended to, by the 13th, we integrate a lot of new learning. If we don't use them like that, it just becomes another day, which is what the Gregorian calendar promotes. That's why we've created this one. As far as the self-regulating, that's the earth energy. And earth energies, because it's a planet of duality, do have a higher vibration, a lower vibration, a way that we are reacting inappropriately and a way that we are responding and using the energies together. So looking at that is a good basic way to start. We're in the process of putting together the 2021 calendar, which is going to be even more expansive, and we'll have more explanations of it. And maybe we should do a whole show on how to use the calendar and let people understand the depths of the wisdom and wealth of information that's available. But yes, in a nutshell, you've given the most appropriate place to start and being able to use it to make a difference in your life.
The foremost importance of this calendar, the reason Larkma wanted us to develop this calendar within their system of astrology is to help humanity understand that energy is the component, the element that has to do with everything in the universe. And using other calendars, the Gregorian calendar is only designed on time, just the element of time. This calendar that you have in your hands is trying to help humanity understand that energy is, I won't say the controlling element, but the most essential element in our lives. And
in fact, Larkma they call what we're moving into liquid time, because liquid time is simply dropping away from the structure of 3D illusionary time and moving into the recognition of energy. That's what they call liquid time. So the calendar represents how to govern and navigate your life by looking at the energies that are present to support your activities and your choices.
And that has to do with everything. It has to do with our own inner selves. It has to do with interpersonal relationships. It has to do with the energy of what the day brings. It's an amazing system. We're so happy that LARCMA helped us do this. And as Pia said, we've just finished the 2021 version, and it's much more expanded. It has much more information and a much greater educational benefit than the first 2 years that we did it, 2019, and the one you have in your hands, the 2020 edition.
So if you want to do another show later, we can walk your listeners through what the Venus information in the back means, what the various things mean, and how to use the complete picture.
I'd love that, yeah. Fun. Absolutely, because I can't wait to see I can't wait for 2021 to come so that I can get the calendar.
We're looking forward to.
Well, we will have the calendar available as soon as it's published.
We'll send you
a copy of it. So
it'll be available next month in August, and we'll send you a copy as soon as it's available.
Great, because let's face it, 2020 has just been a flop.
It felt like a flop, but I think we've actually done a lot more movement towards unity, coming together, and a lot more empowerment by standing up for what's true and what we will not stand for. So even though it appears when you look at it as like a year, we've actually kind of accomplished quite a lot.
And the remaining months between now and the solstice, I don't want to make a guarantee. LARCMA always says predictions are faulty. However, in the next 5 months that are left in this calendar year, we may see things that we never would have imagined, or we never would have had a conscious understanding of coming to reality for us. So I think you might want to expect some changes between now and the end of the year. You may find that some exciting and unusual occurrences may fall into our hands.
Like what?
Tell me more. We enjoyed this so much. We always enjoy our conversations with you.
We love talking with you and communicating ideas back and forth. We've told you this before. We enjoy you as an interviewer.
You're an amazing interviewer.
Because of the questions you ask, but we also appreciate who you are personally, which forms the conversation of your interview. So we just want to let you know, we really appreciate who you are and how you're helping humanity in the world in the work you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we appreciate you guys just as much. And I've had some really beautiful positive feedback from everybody, based around the last conversations that we've had. Everybody fell in love with the pair of you, and they can see how genuine you are. And I think it's important because there is a lot of hoo-ha stuff about 5G and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people have switched off to it. But I think, what you do is you make it, that information, a bit more accessible, and you help people understand the reasoning behind why we've got to kind of do something about it. Otherwise, we might pickle our brains, and my pituitary gland is staying open. I don't care. So, I'm gonna not let mine get calcified. Happens. So no, thank you very much for that, and it's awesome. So I'll if people want to get a copy of your book and the calendar as well, which website do they need to go to be able to get a copy of that? And I'll put it in the link underneath.
It's larkma.com, LARKMAA.com, and they're also both available from any bookstore. You can order it from any bookstore as well.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. All right. So I'll pop that up there for everybody. And thanks again. And no doubt we'll touch base again in a few months' time. It might be 5 months down the track. But before we go, I just wanted to show you, this is in the Color Mirrors system. This is the Pleiadian Starseed bottle. So it's pink, which is Venus energy, which is about love. And underneath it's turquoise, which is all that beautiful Atlantean wisdom, but it's also connected to the whales and dolphins and peace and trust. And freedom, so with the love and the freedom and that beautiful sense of peace, that's the Pleiadian energy. when we're looking at the Andromedan energy, because I'm an Andromedan starseed, this is the Andromedan energy, which is violet, lilac, which is connected to spirit, and rose pink, which is divine love. So this is kind of like love from above. It's the spiritualization of the heart center. So there you go. So these are our colors. All right, in the color mirror system. Beautiful. Hey.
Thanks
for sharing that.
That is a beautiful combination of the understanding of color and the energy of what it means to us. That is very, very special for you to share these at the end of this interview, because this is exactly what we've been talking about for these 2 hours.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. It simplifies it. Really, it just simplifies it. You know, and really that's how the subconscious mind reads the language of light. We just feel it, and it's bringing us back to that feeling space. All right, then. Well, look, I'm going to love you and leave you. It has been a 2-hour interview, but I know everybody will watch it till the bitter end, and I'll be analysing my stats on YouTube as well, just to make sure that you do. So I'll see you next time.
All right,
okay,
just know, Hayden, we keep you in our hearts always.
Oh, very sweet. Thank you very much, and love to everyone in Cyprus. Bye for now.